Hello, let's work with Adobe Illustrator Layers. If you're brand new to layers, they're very handy. They're like sheets of glass and you stack things up on top of each other. And it's just a way of organizing your graphics, your pictures, your vectors, your logos, and naming the layers so that you know where everything is. It's just like having an office with a filing cabinet, and that way, if you can see where everything is and you need some changes, you can delete layers, you can move layers around, you can select objects and change their colors. It's very handy, especially when you have projects that you might work on today and need to change 6 months from now or next year. So we're going to talk about layers. Illustrator, if you're coming from Photoshop to Illustrator, Illustrator is strange because you have sublayers. You'll see in a second. You can use layers to select objects. Sometimes your Illustrator files will be so complex it's hard to see what is where and how to select something so that you can change it. We can move our layers, put stuff on top of things, behind things. It's a little tricky though. Also, we can name our layers, and we can colorize our layers. Whatever layers you have, you'll see your vectors are a certain color depending on what layer they're on. So seeing is believing. So let's go in here and mess around with some Illustrator layers. So here we go. Got a brand new file here in Illustrator. It's blank, it's empty. And just for the heck of it, I'm not seeing my rulers, so I'm going to go up here to the top and go to View, Rulers, Show Rulers. I just like to see them. I like to know the width of things. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to right click up here and change this to inches instead of pixels. So as you can see, this thing is like 8.5 wide and 11 inches tall. We can see it over here. Okay, now let's look at the layers panel. When you start out with a file, you're going to see the layers panel. And we can see it says layers. Here's layer 1. If you want to collapse this panel, I can double click the word layers, double click again, it all comes back. I'm going to make this a little taller. And I'm just going to make some circles here. Get my ellipse tool. I'm going to make a red. I'll make a yellow circle. My fill is set to yellow. And there you go. So my yellow circle, you can see it show up in layer 1. I'm going to rename this layer yellow. That's it. I just double click on the layer name and hit enter. Now this layer is called yellow. Now, interesting to Illustrator is anything that you do right now on this layer creates a sublayer. And here's an example. I'm going to duplicate this circle. I'm going to Alt drag on the PC, Option drag on the Mac. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 circles. Now, it doesn't make sense to me. They're all on the same layer, but whatever you do, Illustrator puts it in a sub layer. And if I click this little thingy right here, there you go. You can see each and every circle in its own sublayer. And notice right now, this circle is selected. In the Layers panel, you can use these little circles to select objects in your layer, or in this case, this is a sublayer. Like if I want to select, I have no clue what circle this is. If I click on it, this little blue doohickey shows you that it's selected, or you can click this thingy and it will select that. So if you want to change the color of that and click this little circle and change the color of that, all of this is going on in this sublayer. Also notice that these little squares are blue. And notice that it's kind of hard to see, but notice my bounding box is blue. Okay, so we can get into a sublayer, see what's in it. I'm gonna do something I don't want to do because we haven't talked about brushes, but if I take the brush tool and come down here, and I make a line, make another line, make another line, make another line, make another line, look, everything that I do, it's making another sublayer. So if you add text, you add an image, it all shows up in this layer, but if the layer is collapsed, you can't see what's going on. You have to expand it. Okay, so I really don't want all of this stuff, so I'm going to select this layer, this sublayer, and this one. Then I'm going to click the little trash can. That makes everything go away. Then I'm going to click this one and that one, click the trash can and make everything go away. Then I'm going to collapse. And now I only have one layer. Yes, it has a sublayer, but it's not confusing because there's only one thing in that layer. I'm going to make a new layer. And also notice this is blue right here. That does have significance. To make a new layer, I just click this. I've got a brand new layer. I'm going to call this one blue. And then I'm going to select my tool over here, select blue, and make a blue circle. Then I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this green. Okie dokie. And then I'm going to, this is selected. I don't want to make my new circle until I have deselected. My layer is selected. Now I can select green, select my circle, and now I've got a green. Now looky here. Notice how when I click this layer, this is green. When I click this layer, this is red. And when I click this layer, this is blue. Illustrator is trying to help you organize. And let me click this. When I click this, notice the bounding box is red. And when I click this, notice the bounding box is green. Illustrator is trying to help you organize what is going on in your mind, and you can change whatever layer you have. You can give it a different color so your bounding boxes are some color you want them to be. To do that, if I come over here, not on the layer name, but over here on the side and double click, well, I get some options. Here's the layer name. I can come down here. Come on now. I can come down here and select whatever color I want my bounding boxes and all that good stuff to be. There you go. And then I can click OK. And now that just turned into the color that I selected. Or it should, though it doesn't seem. There you go. Now it's showing. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of make these things, notice how my objects are stacked on top of each other. And right now, my green one is on top. And over here in the Layers panel, the green one is on top. So I want the green one on the bottom. So I can click the green and I drag down. And when I see that line below yellow, I can let go. Now green, as you can see, is on the bottom. Now this is tricky because it's almost like quicksand. I'm gonna try to make the blue one on the bottom. The tricky part is if you don't drag blue far enough until where you saw the blue line, then it will go into the green layer as a sublayer. It's tricky. So I'm going to click on blue and I'm going to drag down right to there and watch this. Oops, oops. All of a sudden, it's in the blue layer. I didn't want that. I'm just going to Control Z because I didn't drag far enough. So if I want it to go below green, I have to drag not so that green is highlighted, but until I see the line below green, and then I'm good. Okay, now notice the eyeballs. Well, before we do that, I'm going to make another new layer. And I'm going to call this layer background. This is my background layer. And I want the background layer to be all the way at the bottom because that is my background. And before I do anything, I'm going to have my black arrow tool here. I want to make sure that nothing is selected. So I click over here so that nothing is selected. I go to the background layer and I'm going to make like a gray oval. So I select the gray color and do this. Now I've got a gray background. Okay, now, as I work with my layers, like if I'm going to work with these 3 circles, add some text, some images, sometimes, anything that I do, I might accidentally select the background layer and I might move it, change the color by accident. Why deal with that? So under the word layers, we can see these eyeballs. We'll talk about those in a second. But to the right of the eyeball is a blank space. That is a lock. If I click that, it locks my background layer and I can click it and everything and it won't move, which is very handy. You can lock any layer, and if you lock the layer, it locks all of the sublayers in that layer. Now, the eyeballs. For the eyeballs, I want to draw a picture on the blue, but the yellow and the green are in the way. Well, I could move the yellow and the green out of the way, but that'd be kind of a hassle with my design. Because it's a beautiful design. I'm making a lot of money on this. This is worth a ton of money. I don't want to move anything. So what I can do if I want to work on the blue and not move the yellow or the green, that's where the eyeballs come in. If I click the eyeballs, it hides those objects. I can select my blue layer. I can work on it, and when I want the stuff to come back, I just bring the eyeballs back. So in a nutshell, that is kind of sort of working with layers, but I want to do something else now. I'm going to take green, and like we did before, I'm just going to option drag, option drag, option drag, and you can see how in the sub layers, they're all there. And notice that each one is color coded with the bounding box with this pinkish color. I can go from one to the other. You can lock individual objects in the sub layer. You can hide individual objects in the sub layer, and you can bring them all back. You can unlock them. That's about it. So as you work on projects, an Illustrator with all the paths and images and text, it's very handy to put your background in a layer, put your text in a layer, put your logo parts in a layer. That way you can move them around, lock them, control them. If you don't want a layer, if I don't want this green layer anymore, I can select it and click my trash can. And they'll always ask you, hey, are you sure you want to delete this layer? Yes, I do. So there is my brief introductions to layers. They're very handy. I use them all the time. I label my layers because it never fails. You do a project today, and next week, next month, 6 months from now, you're going to have to edit things, and this way you know where all of the objects are.